Hello, I'm David Scranton, and thanks for watching, because today we're talking about financial scams, particularly scams that target older folks or those in or near retirement. And they're a bigger problem now than they've ever been. But don't worry, today we're going to talk about ways to spot these scams and ways to avoid them. So I want to bring in today's special guest, David Stearns, founder and president of Stearns Retirement Group, a retirement income store located outside of Athens, Georgia. David has more than 20 years experience in the financial services industry. Dave, thanks so much for being here with us, and I understand you have some interesting stories for us today.
Well, I do, Dave, and thanks. It's always good to be a guest on the show.
Great. So yeah, let's get right into it, because we're talking about scams, of course. I understand that you have some clients, some folks that you know that have been victimized before by scammers. So, without mentioning any names, tell us the story. Tell us the story, so hopefully some of our folks here can get a better feel for maybe how to avoid some of these traps.
Well, there's those classic scams, Dave, with Social Security and things like that. And then even there was some scams centered around the stimulus checks and things like that. But as a result of COVID, when people were isolated and particularly vulnerable, maybe lonely, spending way too much time online, a lot of romance scams popped up. And I have a client, a lady that passed away in the last 6 months. And her husband, who was a fairly new husband for her, probably about 5 years, who was not a client of mine, we've been in touch with him, and he's confided in us. And honestly, Dave, he has fallen prey to a romance scam. What's happened is he's a widower. He's lonely, he's vulnerable, and somehow these scammers know how to create fake profiles. They present themselves as a real person or who has a real problem, and they spend a lot of time communicating with someone like him. And before you know it, the client, or not the client, but the individual has been roped into a legitimate or illegitimate scam.
So do you think that, how much do you think the coronavirus played into this? Maybe people's sense of loneliness, maybe, just that created an increase in these types of things. And then also, what can older folks do to help protect themselves from scams like this?
Well, I do think the coronavirus played into it, because from a scammer's perspective, they had fresh meat, meaning more people were online due to isolation. And then you add a layer of loneliness. And then if you add a death, an emotional supercharging event, and the scammers are off to the races. And so it's very ridiculous. I do think that COVID had a lot to do with this. Dave, I think that what we're finding is, with the gentleman I spoke of earlier, he's not receptive. He's in isolation. He's not taking advice. And, it's interesting. The Bible says, in an abundance of counselors, there's great victory. And so I really think that what I would advise a lot of retirees and to do is to don't isolate yourself from people that can give you good advice, whether that's your children or whether it's some of your close friends. Don't isolate from them. Run all of these things online by them, and make sure you're surrounded by some good counselors, so to speak.
David, you shared with us a great story. It wasn't an investment scam, but a romance scam. And it just is proof that, these things can take all different forms. But I know you're a big fan in the investment world of education. So how much can education help somebody avoid financial scams?
Well, it's a great question, Dave. It seems like Wall Street advice is so powerful. And a lot of times people aren't getting a second opinion. They're not doing their due diligence. They're just kind of taking it hook, line, and sinker. And often there's some good advice in there, but there's a lot of bad advice in there coming from our industry, as you know. So staying educated, talking to other folks who are investing, getting second opinions along the way, and doing a lot of reading is just what you have to do today, Dave, to stay safe in the investment world.
Sure. I know I've heard you say in the past that in some ways, investing for income in and of itself it can kind of sort of help people avoid scams. Tell me about that.
Well, like the retirement income store, we are all income specialists. And for us, we're fiduciaries. And so we're not buying and selling and trading for commissions. And we're also not creating our own investment statements, right? All of our clients' dollars are housed at TD Ameritrade or Fidelity, a place like that. So our clients are getting statements, not that we create, but that are coming from a third party, which is very helpful. And then for us, as a fiduciary, if our clients aren't winning, we're not winning. So there's a lot of built-in safeguards just in that arrangement like that, Dave.
Sure. Now, in getting out of the scam realm for just a minute, investing for income really not just helps people protect their money and generate income, which of course is what it's all about, but also allows them to get some organic growth if they're not retired yet, correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Dave. Especially, in our case, we often will mix in some growth type vehicles as a part of an income strategy that can bring some capital growth and appreciation. But heck, if they're not retired yet and they don't need the dividends and interest, and we reinvest those dividends and interests, now we're going to be growing income streams in the future on a really stable basis.
Mm-hmm. Okay, as we near the end of the year, we're getting close. We're within a couple months now. What year-end tips do you have for investors who are listening today?
Well, there's still time for a Roth conversion for those that have kicked that can around a little bit. It's time to get serious. We got some time to do Roth conversions. And then, it seems like people like to kick the capital gains tax can down the road. But if you want to harvest some gains in your non-IRA accounts and you want to spread those gains out over 2 tax years, you got a great chance to do it as we end this year, harvest some gains, and perhaps do that at the beginning of next year. And then the last thing I would say, Dave, is you got to nail down your income streams for 2022. If you haven't gotten a second opinion on how to invest for income, now's the time to get that done.
Sure. Make it a New Year's resolution. Nobody says you have to wait till January 1st to exercise the New Year's resolution, right? That's right. David Stearns, thank you. Thank you very much once again for being with us.
Thank you, Dave. It's always a pleasure.
And please make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel for more advice from financial advisors from around the country. And of course, don't forget to click the thumbs up button if you like this video.